Hello guys, so in today's video I'm going to be showing off all of my ants because it's the Halloween special. I hope you enjoy, and we're going to start with my camponotus. I currently have 6 colonies of these guys, and all but one are doing really well. This one is definitely one of the top 2 as far as doing really well, because they have an extremely large brood pile and have almost 10 workers. Here's a close-up of that brood pile. As you can see, it's massive and full of plenty of larvae and cocoons. I caught this colony around 2 months ago, so all of these cocoons should be hatched in a week or so. Here's some cool footage I got. You can see one of the workers carrying around one of the larvae. They're funny little fellas. I'm also going to feed all of my colonies in this video. And this is why I feed them: raw, unfiltered honey. I don't think this really matters, but these are the toothpicks I use to get the honey out. These guys definitely needed the honey, considering they ate a whole drop in under 24 hours, which is quite fast for only 9 ants. Here's colony 2. They have very nasty water, and I'm actually trying to get them to change test tubes. However, they refuse to do so. These guys definitely have a smaller brood pile compared to colony number 1. The reason for that is, as you see, 4 of the workers in front are brand new, 2 of the ones in back are a couple days old, and only one of them is over 5 days old. So she didn't lay the next generation of eggs, which hatched into larvae, until like a week and a half after the other queen already laid hers. Now you can see how hairy these ants are. I mean, it's everywhere. All over their gaster, there's some on the top of their head, all over their back. It's crazy how hairy these ants are. You can also see just how healthy all of these ants are, as all of their gasters are full to the brim with honey. You can see just how beautiful this queen is. She is a very glossy orange-reddish mix. The funniest part about these ants is definitely watching them wiggle their antennas around just like this. It's hilarious. These guys also got a drop of honey, is they ate their drop overnight as well. Here's a quick size comparison to my finger. These guys are really large ants compared to some of my others that you'll see later in this video. I actually caught an ant from colony number 1 eating only 5 minutes after I put the honey in and I put them back on their shelf. Now, colony number 3 has had a really bad time compared to all other colonies. One of their 3 workers already died for some reason, and he died after around 4 days of being born, which is really weird. And as far as I could tell, he had no deformities at all and was perfectly healthy. Here you can see just how small this colony is. With only 2 workers, 3 more cocoons that could possibly hatch, and a very small batch of eggs for their next generation. There's really not a lot to talk about with this colony, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one. Here's colony number 4. They're doing really good. They have around 8 workers, and they have a few more cocoons that could possibly hatch. And they also have their next generation of larvae well on the way. This queen is actually missing 2 of her back left feet, which you can see in this clip. These guys definitely needed some protein, so I gave them a cricket leg, and I didn't think they'd be able to drag it into tubing. Yet somehow these 8 little ants got it all the way in here, and their larvae are feasting on it, and they definitely needed it, as the larva has almost doubled in size just from this cricket leg alone. You can actually see a large pile of eggs and small larvae in the queen's mouth, which is pretty cool. Here's a great demonstration of why I have a toothpick going from tube to tube. I originally had issues with them finding their way back to the nest, but once I added this, there were no issues to be had. You can see how insanely healthy their brood pile is. They have a good amount of large larvae, and you can see this massive pile of eggs that they have too. Soon enough, these guys will hatch into small larvae, and they will have their second generation well on the way. Here's a different angle where you can see all the large larvae I was talking about. Colony number 4 also got some honey. Moving on from the first 4 colonies, we have this queen, who may be infertile because she did not lay eggs for the first 2 months I had her, However, hopefully she is fertile and she just needs some food, which was what I gave her when she laid these eggs. You can see that their stomachs have developed, and that's what those little gray dots are, and that's how you know they're larvae and not eggs, because they're just really, really small. Next up, we have my little colony of Solenopsis invicta. They are constantly running around their outworld, and they have a cricket leg and they have honey, so sadly, I'm not going to get to feed these guys on camera. This queen did a really sloppy job of raising her first generation, so she is actually 3 months behind my other Solenopsis invicta colony. However, as soon as the nanitics woke up, they have started taking very good care of all the pupa, larvae, and eggs, and the colony is getting right along. I love their pile brood. It looks absolutely amazing compared to some of my other ants, and even though these guys are absolutely horrible in the wild, they are really fun to keep so long as they don't get into tens of thousands. Here's a 10-second time lapse. I mean, these guys are just constantly goofing off and running around all over the place. So I feed my ants multiple things: moths, crickets, and also mealworms. And this is where I keep my mealworms before they pupate. This poor guy is going to be our unlucky volunteer today. Did I say volunteer? I meant food. So all I do to feed my ants is remove their lids on their little plastic containers, or on the tubs and tube step, and then I just drop it onto tinfoil. I did fix this one, don't worry about being off the tinfoil. I only ended up feeding some of my carpenter ants. Everybody else didn't eat it. So this is number 1 out of 3 of these queens I have, which I'll feature later in the video. And she has a relatively large pile of brood, which mostly consists of extremely small larvae or some eggs. And you can actually see an egg on the front glass. And here's a better angle where you can see that big pile of small eggs and larvae. I've had this queen for 2 months. I've fed her multiple times, and she is yet to have any pupa at all. I mean, surprising the amount of determination this ant has to not raise a colony compared to some of her sisters. You can see her gaster is bigger than her thorax and head combined. I mean, it is a massive gaster. I'm pretty sure this is the smallest queen I own, and you can truly tell by a finger comparison. I mean, she is micro. Next up is my dorymyrmex bureni. She was featured in my most recent ant video and is very close to getting her first worker. And I can't wait, as she is the only queen of this species I have, and her workers look really funky once they emerge. I ended up giving her some honey, and that's about it. Nothing really happened between this and last video. This queen is also a relatively medium-sized ant. Definitely not a really small one, but definitely not a larger one. Next up, we have the speed round. Queen number 1, she has no eggs, has not dropped her wings, and has shown no signs of being fertile in the slightest. Next up, queen number 2, she is another camponotus. She's about half the size of every other queen, has not dropped her wings, and has not laid eggs, and also seems to be infertile. Last but definitely not least, we have queen number 3, has not dropped her wings, has not laid eggs, and shows no signs of being fertile. And that, folks, is going to be the end of the speed round. Next up is my 4-queen pheidole colony. So after 2 months, they just recently got their first worker because they kept bickering amongst each other and eating the eggs. However, as soon as he hatched, he has been taking care of all of the larvae, pupa, and everything else, and everything seems to be going pretty well for this colony. In fact, they're about to get another 2 workers here pretty soon. Here's a better angle where you can see the 1 worker and then the 4 queens. Hopefully, once they have about a dozen or so workers, they'll start to grow at an exponential rate. Also, these guys are probably the second smallest ants I own. As you can see, they are extremely small. This is my second colony of pheidole ants. They only have 1 queen, yet they have around 13 to 14 workers and have a very large pile brood, and they will probably double their worker count within the next 2 weeks, which is pretty amazing for such a small ant species. Here you can see all of their eggs, larvae, and pupa, and you can actually see a very newly born worker on the middle bottom of the screen, and a slightly older one to the right middle of the screen. Sorry for the quality of this footage not being the best, but keep in mind these workers are micro. I mean, they are the size of a medium-sized grain of sand. So during the filming of this video, I realized something wasn't right, as you can see me tapping on the test tube to try to get the queen to move. However, she was perfectly fine. I just had to tap her with the test tube because she was just having a really good nap. Although I did get really concerned for this queen for about 20 seconds. Here's colony number 3. So I think colony number 3 is doing the best. They have the most amount of workers and largest pile of brood. However, because colonies 2's brood is scattered all over the place, I can't really tell. However, this colony is definitely doing really well. They only have one queen, just like the other one. They have a extremely large pile of brood, pupa, eggs, all kinds of stuff. And as you can see, they have a good amount of newly hatched workers, and a bunch of workers that are about to hatch within the next 48 hours. I gave them a little bit of honey and a random fly that I caught, and I did freeze this fly for over 24 hours, so it is nice and parasite and disease free. Sorry to say, guys, but my pheidole colony with 70 workers and 2 majors did get invaded by Argentine ants, so sadly I will not be featuring them on this channel anymore. Next, we have my 70 worker, 3 major colony of black carpenter ants. These guys are actually doing really good, and you can actually see a worker eating a moth right here. They have a very large pile of larvae that seem to be extremely healthy and growing at a relatively steady pace. Here you can see a major chewing on a moth that they dragged into the nest, and moths are definitely their favorite meal out of any other bug I've ever offered them. Here's Her Majesty doing fantastic as per usual. After around 20 seconds of having the light exposed, they all started moving around, so here's a good video of the queen and all of the workers becoming active. And you can see the giant major too at the bottom moving around. I have them in a tubs and tubes setup, so I just cover up the tubes with tin foil once I get done viewing them, and then put the lid back on and all's good. This is another underwhelming queen. She is dorymyrmex bureni, just as my other one. However, she doesn't have a single pupa. She only has some very medium-sized larvae, which will hopefully pupate within the next 4 to 5 weeks. Here's a bare side view of the same queen, and you can see all of her small larvae right below her head. Speed round number 2. 2 pheidole queens that keep eating their babies and have yet to get a first worker. Definitely fertile though. Next up, we have a possibly infertile lasius queen, or what I think might be a lasius queen. I'm not even sure yet. Next up, we have another, drumroll please, camponotus. She's kept her wings and definitely seems to be infertile with no signs of fertility. This is the same species as the art queen I think might be a lasius. However, I have no clue what she is. However, her first workers have finally hatched, and they have very pointy gasters, as you'll see right here. They also might be acrobat ants. I'm not 100% sure. If you know what this species is, please leave a comment down below. I'll probably end up finding it here soon enough, but yeah, they're really cool and I really like them, and they are by far the tiniest workers out of all of my colonies. I'm really hopeful that I'll get to grow these guys into the thousands. I mean, that would just be awesome. Here's a really good size comparison. You can truly see how microscopic the queen is, plus the workers being 1/5 of her size. I mean, they are just tiny. So, with this colony, the unique thing about it, besides just being really healthy, is the queen actually kept her wings, which is usually a sign of infertility. Although you can definitely see she is not infertile, judging by all of these workers all around the place. Here's a front view of my camponotus ants, because these guys aren't connected to an outworld, so I could just pull the cotton out. As you can see, they flick around a lot, and they're definitely funny little guys. These guys definitely needed a drop of honey, as the last time I gave them a drop was 2 days ago, and they ate that relatively fast. But I got one of the workers to eat off of the toothpick, which is absolutely adorable. So I did say every ant, so I'm showing this queen off, but there's literally nothing happening with this pheidole queen. She's not laid eggs or nothing. I'm pretty sure she's infertile. I of course saved the best for last. So this is my camponotus queen
that is missing 2 legs, and when I say missing, I mean completely crippled. She can't move them. She has torn one of her wings off and has her other wing folded up, which is really weird, and she's also missing half of an antenna. I mean, the fact that this queen is even walking around right now is amazing. Her brood was originally scattered all over the test tube, although her workers have definitely fixed that. She's also going to be getting some honey, as she definitely needs it. This is some adorable footage of this colony. 2 of the workers drink from the toothpick before eventually realizing, oh my god, there's a human attached to the end of this. Here's a nice close-up of all of the brood. You can see all of their large larvae. They have a good amount of cocoons, which will enclose soon. And then they also have a lot of small larvae and eggs. This queen is just laying them in random batches. Definitely not the way that camponotus ants are supposed to do it.
I really hope y'all have enjoyed the 2022 Halloween special. I spent over 8 hours making this video, so if you would like and subscribe, that would be much appreciated. And don't forget to go check out my TikTok and Instagram for high quality footage and photos. See ya!